All right, guys, it is finally time for the wild card weekend. We got a ton of great matchups here. Myself and Mr. Bryson Owens going to be breaking these down for you guys. We are going to build our bracket week after week. This week, obviously, we're doing just the wild card games. We don't want to go ahead and just pack this bracket full and then a bunch of crazy things happen and we ain't got nothing left, right? So, with that said, we are breaking down 6 wild card games for you here. We got the Kansas City Chiefs. We got the Detroit Lions enjoying that bye week, heading to Cancun. Just kidding. But they will be chilling this week. Once again, 6 games for you, starting with the top left corner, my man. We got the number 4 taking on the number 5 LA Rams at home here in this game against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings coming off that loss against the Lions. Really not a good performance to kind of end the year on. Sam Darnold looked off. The defense got exposed yet again. Things were not looking on the up and up. But now you have a Rams team coming in here that, Bryson, from what I've seen, dog, a lot of people taking this Rams team to win this game. Are you one of those people, or do you think people are kind of overdoing what happened against the Lions there from Minnesota last weekend?
No, I think there's some real validity to what happened in the Minnesota-Detroit game. Like, that was one of the biggest games in Lions franchise history. If you watch that game, that crowd was into it from start to finish. It was loud. It was intense. It was essentially a playoff game because the winner of that game got the number 1 seed, obviously, as we see with Detroit getting the bye week. And as well as Sam Darnold has played all season, and as much as I love Kevin O'Connell, and he's one of my favorite coaches in the league, he's going against another one of my favorite coaches in the league with Sean McVay. And in that game against the Lions, I thought the Vikings got out-coached. I thought they got out-hustled. They got more. They were the less physical team. And now they're coming into a game where, and Sam Darnold, for all the good he's done this year, has not yet had to play in that high of a pressure situation. And now it's just going to get even more pressurized because now you lose. You don't like, oh, we lost. Now we're going to be a wild card team. You lose this game, you're done. Your season's over. And this is really important for Sam because Sam instantly went from going like, hey, someone's going to give him a $45 million per year contract to, if he loses this game against the Rams, does he get $25 million? Like, our team's going to go, well, he had a really good year, but how much of it was Kevin O'Connell and the wide receivers? How much of it was Sam Darnold? So, like, a lot of pressure on Sam, playing in front of his home crowd. The Rams, it's been kind of a messy year for them. I did like that their offensive line finished the year 13th by Pro Football Focus. I did like that a lot. I do like that Stafford, Puka, Kyron, Cooper Kupp all got a week off before this game. So, like, they're going to be well rested. The young defense started to play their best football of the year towards the end of the year. So, like, I like a lot of things that are happening for the Rams. And the Vikings just have to be, like, white-knuckling this game. Like, they just have to be going into this like, hey, great season, one of the best years in franchise history, and we can't mess it up by losing this game. I think that tense pressure is going to get to them in this one.
So you are on the LA Rams here.
I am. I think they're playing with house money. I think there's a few teams here that are like, hey, no one thought we were going to make it before the season started. We're here. What do we have to lose?
Wow. All right. Well, folks, I do want to remind you guys, by the way, we are having to agree on this bracket. So we're not going to say I'm on that, he's on that. But I tell you what, Bryson, we're jumping in here with a quick one right away, my brother, because I'm not with you on this game. I like the Minnesota Vikings here. KOC, Coach of the Year, first of all. You guys can go ahead and say it's Dan Campbell, but Dan Campbell was kind of supposed to be here. I like Dan Campbell a lot. But what KOC's done with Sam freaking Darnold has been nothing short of spectacular. I really, really like Minnesota in this game. I think this is a Minnesota team that the majority of people I talked to heading into last week were taking the Vikings to beat the Lions. And now no one thinks they can beat the Rams. Like, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like it's what have you done for me lately? And people are taking that a little bit too serious here for me. I think Minnesota are hands down a better football team unless we get prime time Matt Stafford, which only shows up about once every 5 to 6 games. I don't know here, man. I hear you on the rest thing, but I will be very surprised if Minnesota lose this football game, just because I think they have the better coach in this game. I genuinely, I think they have the better quarterback in this game, but a big part of that's because I just don't think Matt Stafford's all that in a bag of chips. The guy's getting kind of older. I don't like what I see from him. He goes 3 and out more than anybody I've ever seen in my entire freaking life. I don't love Matt Stafford. I think the running game, as great as Kyren is, I think Aaron Jones and company are pretty much just as comparable here. I think passing defense wise, sure. I mean, I think you have to lean the Rams here just kind of based on what just happened, but the Rams are not the Lions, dog. And you heard Dan Campbell. I know you did. At the end of that game, he said, "Hey, KOC, I'll see you in 2 weeks." He knows it. We know it. You can say whatever you want, brother. The Minnesota Vikings are winning this game, and they are getting their rematch with the Detroit Lions next week. I don't know how we're going to come to agreement on this one, my brother, but are you
at all concerned when Sam Darnold's never been in a playoff game before? This is his first playoff game of his entire career.
Game's a game, bro. Game's a game.
And the last time that Kevin O'Connell was in the playoffs, he lost to Daniel Jones. Like, people forget, the reason Daniel Jones got paid $40 million a year was because he beat the division winning Minnesota Vikings coached by Kevin O'Connell.
And led by Kirk Cousins.
It's still Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, same production with KOC, like same level in my opinion. And
one guy's on the bench right now, but I feel you.
I think that the experience of the Rams in the playoffs gives them a big advantage when they have a quarterback who not only has been there a bunch of times in his career, he's won a Super Bowl. They won a playoff game last year when no one thought they were going to make the playoffs.
Do you think Sam Darnold, though, has been not that good all year? Or is this based off what happened last week? Because to me, if you're thinking, oh, this guy's done great and he deserves to get his money and what he's done's been phenomenal and he's got to be a top 2 contender for comeback player of the year, and you think all these great things about him, and then all of a sudden he loses to arguably the best team in football, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I just don't trust Sam Darnold. I don't know. I struggle with that.
I thought Sam's been great all season. He's been really, really good. But in the most pressurized game of the year, he looked like he didn't know what he was doing. And that's the fear with Sam Darnold, because I have 7 years of evidence of Sam Darnold not knowing what he was doing before this year, and then a really good year leading up to a pressurized situation, and instantly Sam went back to New York Jets Sam. And I'm worried about that happening in the playoffs when, with the Rams, every time they needed a must-win game, Matthew Stafford and the Rams delivered. Every time their backs were against the wall and they were going to face elimination, Matthew Stafford delivered. And I think that there's a lot of just outside things, like football-wise, a lot of things lean towards the Vikings and the way they played, both teams playing the regular season. I think there's just some outside things that are happening that could come up, and Sam Darnold is the least experienced quarterback in this playoffs outside of the rookies, and that concerns me a little bit.
Well, then why don't we come back to this game? We got 5 more games. There's got to be more games we don't agree on. So at some point, I'm going to have to concede and you're going to have to concede. So let's go ahead and put this one in our back pocket, because there's another great game right below it here. We got the Commanders taking on the Bucks. Bucks damn near choked this one away last weekend, but they found a way. They got Mike Evans the yards. They did all the things they had to do. We saw how excited this football team was for Mike Evans. That just showed me how the camaraderie here. We've heard the linemen talk about how much they love Baker Mayfield. We've now seen how much they love Mike Evans. We've seen the defense be a unit on the sideline, hyping each other up. Like, this is a tight-knit team, but you got a really good rookie coming in here, the rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels coming in. Dan Quinn has this team fired up, ready to win a game here. Do you think after what you saw last weekend, we have now seen the problems with Tampa Bay? Is this a game where Jaden Daniels walks in, makes this rookie year just that much better, and steals one from the 3 seed?
No, I think I'm going to take the Buccaneers in this game for a few reasons. One, I thought this was fascinating to hear. If I were to ask you which team in the NFC has made it to the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons, who would be the first team you'd think of? You'd think of teams like Philadelphia. Oh, Philadelphia's had to make the playoffs 5 straight years. You'd think of teams like the Rams. You'd think of teams like San Francisco who didn't make it this year. There are so many teams you list before you get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's the correct answer.
Mm.
The Bucks have made the playoffs 5 straight years. Some of them with Brady, now a couple of them with
Oh.
Baker. And I
Mhm.
know Baker's not going to get much MVP recognition, and I don't think he is the MVP of the league, but there aren't very many players who played a better season this year than Baker Mayfield. Dude finished with 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdown passes. He had 16 interceptions, but when you throw 41 touchdowns, I'm like, I don't care if you throw a
All
few
good.
interceptions. It was like Josh Allen last year led the league in turnovers, but also led the league in touchdowns. So everyone's like, I don't care if you have a couple turnovers if you equal out the touchdown production. You know what I mean? And I like the fact that Tampa Bay is the number 1 third down offense heading into the playoffs. That's really encouraging to me. Both O-lines are great. I think Tampa's defense is ever so slightly better than
I agree.
Washington's on a consistent basis. And I think, again, I mentioned it with Sam Darnold. I like the fact that Baker has a couple playoff wins under his belt and has been to the playoffs a few times. And Jaden Daniels, as great as he's been, he's injured coming into this game too. It was a concern I had on him before the season started. Dude's frail. He's skinny. He doesn't have a lot of meat on his bones. He's already injured coming into this game too. And it's his leg. So like that affects his running ability. I think the Bucks are going to be riding a whole lot of momentum led by Baker Mayfield at home. I think this is a win for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and you've kind of brought this up before, but I think the Bucks, excuse my language, fucked around a little bit with Mike Evans trying to get that record. And it was very, very clear, right? Because we were sitting here, we were watching the game, and we were all sitting there going, what in the world? But even when they were losing, who was the only guy whose stats were still going up? It was Mike Evans, because that's all they were focused on. And then what's crazy to me is they got to a point there when they could have gone down 3 scores. They get the stop that they needed. They drove down before halftime and they chopped down the lead a little bit, and they came back out after that. And they still kind of played the Mike Evans thing for like another drive or two. And then they were like, all right, yo, what are we doing here? We're about to blow this whole thing. And with their back against the wall, down 2 scores, they found a way to win the game. And then they found a way to put their season at risk and still throw the ball to Mike Evans and get him the record. The 2 big takeaways for me are, 1, I don't think that they were choking last week. I think the Saints were actually playing decent football. And 2, I do believe that they were just too focused on Mike Evans. You've mentioned it before. That will not happen here again in this game. Mike Evans could go 0 for 0, bro. And if they win, they don't give a damn. He doesn't give a damn. They just want to win the game. Second thing is, when their back's against the wall, I needed to see this team strap down and win a football game, and they got it done. I think they can do the exact same thing against the Commander defense, like you just mentioned. Either of these defenses could easily get a 30-piece put up on them, no doubt in my mind. However, it is more likely that that's Washington on the road than it is Tampa at home. This is going to be a close one for me. I trust Baker Mayfield a little bit more than I trust Jaden Daniels in this position as well. I like Dan Quinn, but I don't know how much coaching is going to come into a factor here. It's defense and it's quarterbacks. And right now I'm leaning towards the Bucks on both. So I'm going to say it's a really close game. Probably comes down to it. Give me the Bucks to win this thing by about 4 points. Maybe they have to stand on their head at the end and stop a touchdown from happening. I believe at home they will get that done. So we are in agreement here, folks. Tampa Bay Buccaneers gonna KO the Washington Commanders round 1. All right, guys, moving on through here. Let's figure out who's playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, shall we? We got the Green Bay Packers taking on the number 2 Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles obviously been resting their guys. Saquon wanted to go for the record. They didn't want him to go for it, blah, 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 blah. We've seen Jalen Hurts right now. I was going to say is hurt right now, is in concussion protocol at the moment. So it looks like he's going to play based on the odds. And once again, guys, we're going to have an NFL show for you on each of the days of these games. So we'll still talk about the lines and everything when everything's official. But as of right now, they're a 4.5-point favorite. That tells us Jalen Hurts is expected to play at this point. So we will break this game down based on the fact that he is going to play. Obviously not 100%, but he's going to play. So with that said, Green Bay, Bryson, let me first of all tell you right now, this is a really ugly draw if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't care what y'all think about the Green Bay Packers. They have a great coach on the floor. They have a phenomenal defense. Their quarterback, even though he puts the ball in some bad situations, the dude is a gun slinger and he's got balls. And I like balls, bro. Pause. You know what I'm saying? I like the way Jordan Love plays football. Look, dog, you ain't going to like this, Bryson. Give me the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, this one's really tough for me because of the whole Jalen Hurts situation. Obviously, we're operating under if he's going to play, but that it's a weird injury because if it's like a lower body injury, you're like worried if he's going to be in good enough condition, and if he's going to be worried about running the ball much in the game. If it's his arm, you worry about him throwing the ball. It's a concussion, so like physically, if he's cleared and good to go, he should be fine for the entire. Like he shouldn't be limited in the game. That's
all he has to do is avoid a shot to the head. That's it. However, quick question: does it affect the tush push at all?
I think it does affect the tush push, but man, outside of Baltimore with Derrick Henry, is there a running back you want you need 1 yard to get a first down? There aren't very many running backs you want more than Saquon Barkley. So like if they have to abort the tush push for a week and lean on Saquon, I think they're going to be just fine. I am really concerned, speaking of injuries, on the Packers with all their injuries. Because Jordan Love got hurt in his game, and that is an injury that could limit him in this game. He's listed on the injury report with an elbow injury. He was also messing with his hand during the game. So, like, I'm concerned about him throwing the football if he's going to be really limited in that regard. And then losing Christian Watson to a torn ACL, big blow to this offense. He's their deep threat. He's their big body receiver. Jordan Love loves taking shots to him at least 2 or 3 times a game. Romeo Doubs is questionable in this one. Jair Alexander, their all-pro corner, out in this one. And the Eagles have damn good wide receivers on their side. So like, that concerns me a lot. And then I've told you this. I told you this before the season started. I've been telling you this all year. I think the Eagles, top to bottom, player for player, position group for position group, the most talented team in football. And the stats this year kind of backed it up. Philadelphia this year finished 8th in offensive line, which like you lose a Hall of Fame center in Kelsey, and you still are a top 10 offensive line. Pretty good year for them in that regard. Defensively, all those first-round picks, I feel like half their defense is first-round picks, and it paid off for them. First in total yards, first in passing yards, second in points, like third and third down defense. Like this team is so well-rounded from top to bottom. And I know you mentioned the Packers have the better coach with LaFleur, and I agree with you. Out of LaFleur and Sirianni, I would take LaFleur. But the Eagles have probably the best coordinator tandem in football, if not a top 5 coordinator tandem in football. Like, they're really good, especially on Vic Fangio's side of the ball. And I like the fact that they've been battle tested in the playoffs so often in all these players' careers. In Philadelphia, that's a tough place to play. I would take the Eagles, especially if Jalen Hurts is good to go, not limited. I would take Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I would take Jalen Hurts and the Eagles before I take the Rams against the Vikings. That's what I'll say. Like, I'm more confident in the Eagles.
You trust Jalen more.
I trust Jalen. I trust the roster. Like, the Rams roster is very young. Like, it's one of the youngest defenses in this playoffs. So, like, I would trust the Eagles roster and coaching staff and everything a little bit more than the Rams.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this, folks. First of all, if I lose this battle, I am still taking the Packers with the points in this game.
Fair.
One, I believe if Jalen is healthy by game time, I think they're roughly a 6-point favorite in this game. And if they are, I can't leave 6 points on the table with a team that I deep down think can win this game. Now, I do believe Philly probably win this game by 3 or 4 points, but I'm just saying, if there's a team to upset Philly here, I think of the Commanders, the Bucks, the Rams. They would rather see any of those teams over the Green Bay Packers, in my opinion. I think the Packers here are a dangerous number 7. I think the Packers would beat either of the teams above them. So it's really hard for me, but I'll make you a deal. We got to finish the left side of the bracket. If I give you Philly, will you give me Minnesota?
Yeah, I'll compromise for that. Because, I said, I'm more confident in Philadelphia than I am with the Rams, as long as Jalen's playing. Like, this whole thing changes if it's, no offense to your guy, if it's Kenny Pickett out there. there's only so much the rest of the roster for Philly can do if it's Kenny Pickett and at quarterback and not Jalen Hurts.
That's fair. All right, guys. So left side of the bracket, we got the Vikings beating the Rams. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Commanders, and we have the Philadelphia Eagles taking down those Green Bay Packers. Jumping on over to the right side, number 1 Kansas City sitting there waiting for one of these two teams. The LA Chargers coming in number 5 on the road. Houston Texans number 4, obviously at home. The game's going down in a dome, which is also where the Chargers play. You and I have talked about it before. We think the Rams and the Texans home field advantage kind of means the least amount right now in this playoff picture. So with all that said, I've been hearing you for weeks saying, as a Steelers fan, I should want to draw the Houston Texans. Do you think the Chargers have gotten lucky to draw Houston here?
I don't know if lucky is the word I would have used. I think fortunate is the correct term, because I think lucky implies like they didn't deserve to be the 5th seed, and I think they did, or the 5th seed. I think they did deserve that. I do think getting Houston is the number 1 draw that everyone wanted in the AFC. Houston, I love a lot of what they do, and I like their defense a lot. They're a physical defense. We'll talk about them when I compare the Broncos to the Texans in a little bit when we talk about the Bronco game. But they're a physical defense. They get after the quarterback. They play man-to-man. They let Derek Stingley just take the number 1 wide receiver and say, everyone else, just do your job. Don't screw this up.
Yeah.
The issue is the offense for this team that was so fun to root for last year. CJ Stroud was so fun to root for last year. They were one of the more explosive offenses in the NFL. They couldn't do anything wrong on that side of the ball. It's damn near mediocre right now. Like, the numbers bear it out. 15th in total yards. They're 21st in passing, 19th in scoring, 19th on third down. O-line
not terrible.
Not terrible, but by like about average to below average. And I think O-lines play more of a role in the playoffs than any regular season game, because this is the best defense in the NFL at this point at this time of the year. And if your offensive line can't protect your quarterback, you're in for a long night. And Houston has the worst offensive line, not only in these playoffs, it's a bottom 5 offensive line in football. And the Chargers get after the quarterback. They play physical defense. Jim Harbaugh is, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in the entire world. Like, Jim Harbaugh is incredible with what he's able to do. College football, he wins everywhere he goes. He has Herbert playing the best football of his career. Again, I think there's, in my opinion, 1 lower seed on both sides is going to win in the first round. There's going to be 1 on each side. We said that the Vikings, even though they're the favorite, were the lower seed that makes it through on the other side. I think this is the same situation over here. Chargers, technically betting favorite, lower seed, though. I think they move on.
Here we are again. We find ourselves in the same predicament. Look, man, I like what you're saying, and I know what you're saying here. This is a Houston Texans team that I don't think on paper scares anybody. I mean, everybody in the playoffs wanted this game. Even as a Steelers fan, I was like, bro, we could walk into Houston and whoop that ass. Okay, like straight up, like. I knew that. I think you knew that. I think the whole world knows it doesn't really matter who it was going to be. The Denver Broncos would beat the Houston Texans. Like, I just think that the Texans are the weakest team in this side of the bracket. However, I don't trust Justin Herbert. As you know, never have. Ever since college. I loved him at Oregon. I don't look at this Chargers team outside of Kyren Williams. And I know that Ladd McConkey has kind of been on the up and up, and everyone's kind of talking about Ladd McConkey again. Oh, that's a dirty white boy right there. And like all these great things. It's great, right? It's great. However, the Houston Texans pass defense is one of the few things I think can win them this game. And it's going to have to win the game because, like you mentioned, offensively, I don't know how much they're going to do here. I don't know if the Texans are good for much more than 21,
I think that was going to be my cap. 20 to 21 was my cap.
And I do see how the Chargers get to that 24 to 27 number in this game. I know I'm going to lose this one if we debate this one out, and I could, go ahead and put that in my pocket. But I am leaning towards the Houston Texans. I'm not going to lie to you, just because I think everyone's writing them off. I don't trust Justin Herbert. They are going on the road. Even if it's not a hard place to play, you're still on the road. And I do believe here that the LA Chargers are a very easy to figure out football team. It's really simple. Don't let Justin stand there and look around.
Yeah.
No offense, but like if you can stop Kyren Williams from just murdering you and you can put some pressure on Justin Herbert, the dude makes mistakes, bro. He overthrows a lot of balls. He runs out of the pocket really weird sometimes, loves to just toss it out of bounds. He's at least going to give them an opportunity to make this a slowed down, pretty good football game. I do think Houston can win this game, but I'm going to go ahead. I mean, I'll be honest with you, bro. Like, I can't say it. I can't even say that. I don't like the Chargers to win this game. They have looked decent over the past couple weeks. They've also drawn nobody. They beat the Patriots and the Raiders the last 2 weeks, bro. And then the Denver Broncos barely. Like, I don't think that they're all that coming into this like everybody else does. I think Houston's being slept on the same way I think Minnesota's being slept on. So I hate to break it to you. I'm locking in the Houston Texans, but we do got to keep moving here. Is there anything else you want to throw out about this one before we come back?
Yeah, I think you made a really good point that if this game really does come down to Justin Herbert needing to, he doesn't need to be Superman because he hasn't been Superman this season and the Chargers have been winning games, but he needs to be, this is going to be a funny comparison for all my superhero fans. He needs to be Batman. Batman's a mortal dude, has no superpowers. He just has all the tools in his tool belt. Justin Herbert, I don't think he's a superhero, but man, he's got every tool you need for a guy to be successful.
That was great, by the way. That was nice.
He just needs to not have Justin Herbert. You mentioned this with Matthew Stafford. Every 4 games has a bit of a brain fart and just doesn't know how to play quarterback weirdly. And so if he can avoid that, and to your credit, the Texans 4th in the NFL in sacks, and they are tied. They're number 2 in the NFL in interceptions. Now Herbert hasn't thrown any interceptions this year. He's only thrown 3. So like that's an interesting battle to see there. But
because Kyren Williams can carry him and he loves to throw the quick slant and the check down. And all I'm saying is I think they're going to have to open it up here a little bit.
Yeah.
And if they bring the pressure, they have the DBs to make plays defensively. And they're going to have to, or they're not going to win this game.
Also, you're saying Kyren Williams, that's the Rams, the other LA team. They have J.K. Dobbins. Same idea. Yeah. Same idea. But yeah, I think the Texans have a way to win this game. I'm really concerned with that offense and the way it's looked all year. It's not been good this year. And there's 2 offensive players for the Texans who I can see they will have to go off if they want to win this game. It's Nico Collins and it's Joe Mixon. If those 2 have good games, it gives the Texans a chance. I'm concerned. We'll hold off on that one because I think I'm gonna have to make another concession with this game.
It's hard, man. So far, I think it's the hardest game to call. I really do. And I know the Minnesota game's very comparable, but I literally think this is harder because these teams to me are, when you say 50-50 game, this is a 50-50 game. There's no way around that. Yep. So anyway, jumping on down, number 6, number 3, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming into this game against the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh coming in on a really bad losing streak right now. The world has officially written off the Pittsburgh Steelers and said they are cooked, bro. They can't beat nobody. I'm going to go to war for this team real quick, though, because the last half of this schedule has been the hardest second half schedule in all of football. They have played the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the desperate Cincinnati Bengals. 2 of those games, you could consider 2.5. 2 of those games, they had no George Pickens. They've been on the road. They've been on short rest, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. I'm personally not going to watch Pittsburgh play phenomenal football for 13 weeks. And then all of a sudden they lose a couple games and the world just thinks that the Ravens are going to stomp them out the yard. You guys forgetting Lamar Jackson can't win playoff games. Let's just start there. Second of all, Pittsburgh already beat Baltimore this year. And over the last 5 years, they consistently beat Baltimore. So for everyone to look at that game from 3 weeks ago and say, oh, well, Baltimore just beat them. Like, okay, once again, you're playing this little sample size right here. I'm playing the big picture. And the big picture says Mike Tomlin outcoaches Harbaugh. That's check 1. Check 2 is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense has always given Lamar Jackson a very, very tough time. Third thing is this game very well is going to matter for kickers. It's outside, it's cold as hell, etc., etc. I'm sorry, what's the narrative been this year? Oh, Justin Tucker is no longer the GOAT and he's washed. Oh, but who is the best kicker in the NFL? The guy on the other side, Chris Boswell. All I'm telling you here, Bryson, is I think people have written Russ off officially. I think people have written off Mike Tomlin officially. I think people have written off the Steelers defense officially. Every single thing here, I understand every take of why Baltimore is going to win, but I don't give two damns. This is the upset of the weekend. The world is going to crumble when the Pittsburgh Steelers upset the Baltimore Ravens, and all this Lamar Jackson talk is going to be real ugly, Bryson, and I'm going to be on the front lines giving my piece.
So this is why I said I was gonna have to give a concession to the Chargers Texans game, because I'm not gonna give you the Steelers Ravens game. I know you made a lot of good points. You brought up the playoff thing for Lamar, which is real. It is a criticism I've had of Lamar in his career. His numbers aren't good. His numbers in the playoffs, they're not good at all, right? And the numbers against the Steelers, like he is 3-5 against the Steelers. Like he hasn't played well against them overall in his career. But I did mention that the last time they played the Steelers was in Baltimore. It was the first time with fans, and I said that was going to play into a factor, and it did a little bit. Now he gets fans for a playoff game against the Steelers at home. It's going to be really interesting. And while we're talking about the playoff struggles with Lamar, I do think it's important to bring up one fact. He didn't have Derrick Henry in those games. Like he had nobody running backs to help him out in those games. Now he has Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in football. I think that does play a major factor in this matchup. And then while we're talking about playoff games and playoff shortcomings, it's not like the Steelers have a whole lot of recent success in the playoffs on their side. Mike Tomlin has lost 4 straight playoff games. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. 70% of the league has won a playoff game, but since the Steelers last won one. Like that's concerning on that side. Russ, the last time he was in the playoffs, which was 4 years ago, wasn't good. He went 11 of 27 and had an interception, less than 200 passing yards. Like Russ, the last time he was in a playoff game, and that was like prime Russ. Like he was younger, more athletic, could run more. He was better throwing the football at that point in his career. It's like and with Russ heading into this one, 5 straight bad Russell Wilson games. Like that's really concerning. Like Russell Wilson has not been good for 5 straight games, and all 4 of the losses, Russell Wilson was downright atrocious in my opinion. He's averaging 170 passing yards per game over the last 5 games. And this defense for the Ravens, as bad as it was early in the year, like it was atrocious. Like we were talking about this being one of the worst defenses in football. They finished 9th in scoring. Like they were at one point last in scoring, and they finished 9th. Like this defense is on a heater. It's at home. Lamar Jackson playing the best football of his career, especially throwing the football. You know, I think Lamar's the MVP of the year this season. I think there are just too many.
How are you going to feel when they lose this game, though? Is he still the MVP?
Well, it's a regular season award, so yes, he is still the MVP.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yes, I think if Lamar Jackson has a good game and they lose, I can't hang that on Lamar. So we have to see if Lamar still has a good game and a loss.
If Lamar has a good game, they win the game.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's a good point. And there's so much momentum on Baltimore's side. The Pittsburgh offense is really scaring me. You talked about with the Chargers offense, it's really simple. Pittsburgh's is maybe the most simple offense in this playoffs. Like it's hand the ball off to Najee Harris.
This whole rivalry is simple.
Yeah, but
I don't think either side is going to do crazy things. They're just going to play hard-nosed football for 60 minutes. That's it.
Yeah, but I think the Ravens are capable of doing more spectacular things on offense than the Steelers are right now. So I think the Ravens win it. Could it be like the Ravens are the biggest favorite of the weekend? Could the Steelers cover? Sure. I can see them keeping this a 1-score game, but I just don't see them getting this upset done. And speaking of offensive lines earlier, Pittsburgh's is the 2nd worst offensive line in the playoffs. They're 25th in the NFL, and the Baltimore Ravens have the 6th best.
Hey, Bryson, maybe I'll make you a deal, brother. If the Steelers lose, I'll move to Pittsburgh. How's that for you? But with all that said, look, I get that the Steelers are my team, and I do want to disclose that to all you people on YouTube. If you don't know that, I am a Steelers guy, okay? So I want to genuinely tell you right now, Bryson, it's the same way I like the Packers. It's the same way I like the 5 seed Vikings. It's the same way that I think that when everyone's writing off the Texans, I'm kind of on this who's the team people are writing off train right now on wild card weekend, just based on kind of my picks so far, right?
Yep.
And I'm just going to stick to it. It's not because it's my team. It's because of the fact that I truly believe for 13 weeks, I felt that Pittsburgh was the better football team. I really, really did. And there couldn't be more write-off happening right now. So even though I'm with you, Arthur Smith got to figure it out. Russ got to play better. Defense got to start locking down again. TJ Watt got to get to the quarterback. They got to do a lot of things here to win this football game. However, I think all the Ravens have to do is have Lamar Jackson have a bad game, and I swear to God they could lose. If Justin Tucker misses 2 field goals and Lamar has a 50% completion percentage, Pittsburgh can win this game. Straight up. And what I just meant, that's not out of the question. Like, that's not, but that's rigged. That's if. Bro, how many times has Justin Tucker missed this year? Yeah. How many games has Lamar Jackson had moments where we're like, oh my God, like he looks terrible. And like you mentioned, they're on a heater right now. So you got 2 teams going in completely different directions. I understand. I'm going to stick with it. I'll be honest with you. I don't like this. Settling on this one to me is fucking terrible. But because they're the biggest dog of the weekend, I will say okay. But folks, just so you know, I'm on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we at the Sports Forum are on the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm going to make that deal with you because I know if we were to ask the rest of the team, I'm the only guy taking Pittsburgh. So we will take Baltimore for the team. With that said, let's move on. Yeah.
The one last thing I wanted to bring up, because I forgot to mention a second ago, you brought up the second half of the schedule for the Steelers. And yes, it was incredibly difficult. But that's the level of competition you're going to be playing in the playoffs. And if that's the showing you had against that level of competition in the regular season, it doesn't give me much confidence in the playoffs against the same level of competition. You know what I mean? It's like that was not – if the Steelers had gone in that 4-game stretch, even if they won one of those 3 games, I would be like, okay, I saw them beat a playoff-capable team down the stretch of the regular season. But the fact they lost all 4 of them heading into this one scares me a bit.
Here's the thing, bro. Once again, I understand why everyone is going to go against them here. And I get that this is hard for me to make this case. I think even if we beat Bengals last weekend, I think you have to actually hear me out here. But I understand why everyone's like, there's nothing here. There's nothing to hold on to, Riggs. You're just holding on because you like them. I completely disagree. However, I see the narrative, so I'm cool with it. We'll let it go. You say the winner. I'm not going to say it because I don't think they're going to win. But you go ahead.
We have the Ravens winning this one, but I do think that the Steelers can cover. I think they can keep it a 1-score game.
I respect it. All right, now we're going on through to the 7, taking on the 2 here, wrap things up. By the way, guys, that puts us on the Houston Texans as well, by the way. We're going to go Texans over the Chargers. 50-50 game, but let's give the home team advantage here. 50-50 game, home field gives you 3 points. Boom, there you go, Houston Texans. Baltimore Ravens, Broncos, Bills. Tough one here, Bryson. I think the Broncos got some momentum, if you would. I don't consider it momentum. I mean, they lost multiple games in a row, and then they beat a JV Chiefs team, but whatever. They had a good game. The vibes are high here in Denver, Colorado, as we know. The Buffalo Bills, though, coming in with the projected MVP quarterback in Josh Allen. Steelers fan, brother. Now, I had Mason Rudolph, so take it for what it is. Mitch Trubisky, okay? We had to walk into Buffalo last year, and let me tell you right now, my God, is that a hard place to go play football? We're talking about home field advantage. I don't know if there's a harder place. If Philly's hard, I don't know if there's a harder place, bro, than Buffalo here. So I love 100%. The boys. I can't wait to hear your case on the Denver Broncos, but I just have to say, Josh Allen, Bo Nix, I want Josh Allen. Coach for coach.
I think Sean Payton's better than Sean McDermott.
2-3 years from now, when he's like hardcore, the Broncos coach, been the Broncos coach, I'd agree with you. But I do think McDermott this year has really redeemed himself in my eyes. I was one of the guys last year who was like, yo, let that man go. Like, I don't like McDermott that much, but he's done a phenomenal job. so far this year. So I'll give him the credit this year. And I'm not even hating on Sean Payton. I'm just saying I do like what I've seen from McDermott this year. And then defense for defense, it's close, but I still go Bills. Everything to me is Bills here. I love Will Lutz. Actually, the kickers is the closest thing here. You got Tyler Bass, you got Will Lutz. Both dudes are great. The difference is Will Lutz on the road outdoors is the one time he tends to struggle. So I'm going to go ahead and lean Tyler Bass there again. I mean, I've seen Tyler Bass in the snow globe. Remember that game, the snow globe game, when he kicked the game winner and slid in the snow? Like, I got no fear here from Josh, from the kickers, from the defense, from the coaching. I really actually want to go Denver, but I can't get there. Give me the Bills.
So the only things I would disagree with you on are, I think the Broncos do have the better defense. The numbers point that way. I mean, the Bills defense, I think, was a little bit disappointing, in my opinion, this year. 19th in total defense. They're 24th against the pass, and they were 11th in scoring. They don't get to the quarterback great. This one, I brought up offensive lines a lot. This is my favorite matchup in terms of offensive lines in the playoffs. It's the number 2 ranked offensive line for Denver versus the number 3 ranked offensive line for Buffalo. Like, doesn't get much better than that. Like, these quarterbacks have been 2 of the least sacked quarterbacks in the entire league. So, like, that's going to be a fun one to watch. Again, you mentioned you're a Steelers fan. I'm a Bronco fan. I am taking the Bills to win the football game. I think the Bills win largely because they're more talented in the most important position, with Josh Allen, where he is right now, the level he's playing, going against Bo Nix, who I thought had a really good year. I think he's going to be in the top 4 in the Rookie of the Year race. I think he and Sean have developed a really good chemistry and a really good relationship with each other this year. I think, one or more 2 years down the line, you get Denver some better receivers, some better tight ends. Maybe they can be in a spot where they can compete more consistently with these teams. I think we're not quite there. We're missing a little bit of talent, in my opinion, for the Broncos to really go into places like Buffalo and win games. I do think we can compete for a few reasons. One, I mentioned the defense. This Denver defense, I think, has been underrated all year. I think it's been, in my opinion, a top 5 defense pretty consistently all season. I think they've had 2 games where they've really let the team down. I think the Baltimore game, that was a bad game by the defense. And the Cincinnati game, that was a bad game by the defense. Even the Chargers game, like, there were spurts in that Chargers game where the defense really did their job and did
the first half was atrocious. It was terrible.
Yes. But I think that they had their moments even in that game where they kind of kept the team in it. They're first in sacks, and they're first in
I
sacks.
want to defend you really quickly as well. I do want to throw out there. I know if you go look at the rankings right now, the guy has fallen out of the Big 5, which, I'll be honest with you, I think it's bullshit. But Nick Bonitto has been phenomenal for the Denver Broncos. And what's really interesting is you saw Nick Bonitto go from the second favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year. At one point, he was right there on TJ Watt's heels with PS2 roaming in the background. Now PS2 is the favorite to be it, then TJ Watt, and Nick Bonitto's fallen like 150 to 1. I don't know why. I get that he didn't do a lot, but he didn't do anything bad. I would argue right now, 2 of the top 5 defensive players in 2024/25 right now are on the Denver Broncos.
Yep, and that was going to be my next point with Pat Surtain. Like I mentioned earlier, the Texans and the Broncos, like the one time we really saw Josh Allen struggle this year was against the Texans.
Yep.
And I think the Texans and the Broncos have a very similar defense, physical, blitz the quarterback a lot. They let their 1-star corner just completely blank the wide receiver and let the other guys just do their thing. And I think Pat Surtain is going to do a similar thing. These are some gaudy numbers I have about Pat Surtain real quick this season. He is first in the NFL in yards allowed for the least amount of yards. He only allowed 306 yards this season when he was the primary guy in coverage. He was first in yards allowed per coverage snap at 0.6. He allowed less than a yard per snap per coverage snap in the NFL this year. Lowest target rate. He was fewest air yards per target. Like, he was phenomenal this year. And I know a lot of people after the Bengals game were kind of like sour on Riley Moss. I want to give him a bit of a break. He missed 3 games prior to that because of a knee injury, and his first game back is against T. Higgins. Like, okay, 9 out of 10 corners are going to struggle in that kind of situation.
T. Higgins about to get paid, so like, yeah,
and the Bills,
it's all good.
The Bills' best receiver isn't better than T. Higgins right now. So like, I'm not super concerned about Riley Moss in this game. I think the Broncos defense, it's going to be
You
cold.
don't think Shakir?
No, Khalil Shakir is fine, but Shakir had 800 yards this year. And T. Higgins, while missing games, had 910 touchdowns. So, I think T. Higgins would be the number one receiver in Buffalo. I think that the defenses in this game, it's going to be cold, which I think gives advantage to the defenses. It's going to be disgusting weather. And so I think that muddies things up on both sides and gives a team like Denver, who's young. I mentioned this earlier with who was I talking about? The Rams I was talking about, where they're like, no one picked us to get here, so we're here. So everything else is icing on top of the cake. The Broncos have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose in this game, and all the pressure is on Buffalo to live up to the hype they've built up this season. So I think there's a world where it's a 4-point win for Buffalo, and everyone's not really that impressed by Buffalo in the win. So again, I think Buffalo wins because I think Josh Allen's incredible. The defense is still good for Buffalo, and Denver's just missing talent in important positions to really go into a place like Buffalo and win. But I think there's a world, you mentioned it with Pittsburgh, I think there's a world where at minimum the Broncos make this an uncomfortable game for the Bills.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But I'll be fair, and I'm going to say the Bills win the game. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I disagree with you on Sean Payton versus Sean McDermott. I think Sean Payton's a better coach than McDermott is. I think if you give Sean Josh Allen, it's a guaranteed 12-win season. Giving a coach.
Let's give the Pittsburgh Steelers Josh Allen, bruh.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach than Sean McDermott. I think Sean McDermott is a little bit elevated because he has Josh Allen. I don't know if he himself.
Can you agree? Can you at least agree, though, of the last 3 years, this is the best Sean McDermott we've seen? That's all I was saying. I think he's on the up and up right now.
I think if you were to switch the coaches, if you put Sean Payton in Buffalo, and Sean McDermott in Denver, the Broncos are probably a 7-win team, 8-win team, and the Bills are still probably a 12-win team. I think Sean is a built-in for the Broncos, at least a 2-game difference, in my opinion.
Fair. I won't argue with you right now, even though I'd like to, but I won't argue with you right now. But hey, guys, all right, here you go. So let's go ahead and pull up that bracket one more time for you. We're going to lock in our picks here for Wild Card Weekend. We did it in a solid 47 minutes. Look at us. So with that said, we got the Vikings and the Rams. We have Minnesota advancing to take on the Lions. We have the Buccaneers beating and handling business against the Commanders. We have the Eagles. Keep an eye on Jalen Hurts, but if he plays, we have the Eagles beating the Green Bay Packers. Then we jump on over to what we believe is the hardest game to call. We're going to say that the Texans find a way to win this game against the Chargers, but we will not be shocked in any way, shape, or form if the Chargers win that game to take on Kansas City. Then Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. We are going to go Baltimore to get the win at home over a struggling Steelers team. And finally, we're going to take Josh Allen, the so-called MVP, to get it done against the number 7 Denver Broncos walking in. Bryson, my final question for you, my brother. I'm going to go ahead and lock in my pick right here, right now, and keep it nice and simple. I don't know what yours is going to be, but my favorite upset of the week is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The biggest dog. We're talking about biggest upset. Favorite upset. My favorite upset is the biggest upset. Give me the bird to get it done. If you could pick one dog here, and let's go ahead and go dogs based on seeding. Who's your favorite upset?
Okay. Well, if it's based on, this one's really tough. I think my favorite,
just in the sense of you can't pick a 4 to beat a 5.
Yeah. I think if I'm going to go real bold and say my favorite upset, I'll say the Broncos. The Broncos, to be fair, with a worse team, in my opinion, went to Buffalo last year and beat them. So it's not out of this world that a Denver team can go into Buffalo and win. I think it's just because it's a rookie quarterback doing it, people want to make it seem impossible. It's not impossible. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if I had to pick a favorite upset, I think if I had to pick my favorite upset, it would be Denver. They're just, in my opinion, this round, there aren't very many seeding upsets I really like that much. So I'll say Denver.
Do you agree or disagree with me if I say the Packers, Steelers, or Broncos will win?
No, I don't think it's absurd to say one of those three teams will win. I think
But
that there
do you think it'll happen?
it's the playoffs and weird things happen all the time. I mentioned earlier that like there's guaranteed one seeding upset that's going to happen. And so I would not be shocked if it happened. I don't think it will. I think the teams that we picked are the ones that are going to win. If I were to say one, like if I'm the most confident in one of them, it might be the Packers.
If you could bet it minus 110 or plus 100, will there be a 6 of those 3? Will one of them win? Would you bet yes or no?
I personally would bet no, but I wouldn't. I would not like discourage anyone from wanting to take that bet. It's not a bad bet.
For sure. Once again, guys, hypotheticals. I'm just trying to make it fun here. So with all that said, we appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for tuning in, guys. As we said, we're going to be live for you before, by the way, also the college football games. So both semifinal games, we got a Thursday game, a Friday game. Then we got Saturday NFL, Sunday NFL, Monday NFL. We will be live before every single one of those games. We're going to go live for 30 minutes, 1 hour prior to kickoff to give you guys that extra time to get your picks in, do what you got to do. So we'll see you guys 1 hour before. Going to be live on our YouTube channel at The Sports Forum. You see at the bottom there, make sure to click that subscribe button. Never miss any of our shows. We're going to be live for you guys almost every single day. Appreciate you guys doing that, my man. Good luck this weekend on those brackets, folks, and we'll see you for round 2.